Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
or what remains of Mike Tyson, the fighter, in a licensed professional fight against Jake Paul. I think it was a farce. I think it's an embarrassment to professional boxing. It's the reason why I think it's an embarrassment to professional boxing is because it was categorised and licensed as a professional fight. You were there all week. You and your little colleagues over there were building it up as credibility, about it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you make
can I defend myself and make a case for my...
Well, you can defend the indefensible if you wish.
Yeah, well, listen, I just think that you live in the dream, and I think that, you know...
But what was the dream?
The dream was seeing Mike Tyson come out there again.
58 years of age. Why would anybody that's got a grown-up mentality look there and go, that's appropriate?
Yeah, but let's give your head a wobble here. Like, he's 58 years of age, but he's boxing Jake Paul, mate. You go, like, so I'm going 10% of Mike Tyson would beat Jake Paul. And unfortunately, we didn't see 10%, we didn't see 2%. We saw a very old man that couldn't get in a car or out of a car in the build-up to the fight, in the week, was struggling to walk up the stairs, and you just go, how did the commissions allow him to fight anyway with what he come out with after, which I'm sure you're going to talk to us about.
I mean, they talked about him being in hospital, having an ulcer, and having lost 25 pounds. I don't know how you can lose 25 pounds.
I think he had 8 blood transfusions.
Yeah, and having a whole raft of blood put into him. And you see these commissions in America. You see the Florida Boxing Commission that they often go to make dubious fights. I've been into Memphis when Tyson fought Lewis because that's the only place he could get licensed in 2002 when Lennox went over to Memphis and beat him there. There wasn't much left of him in that fight besides a lot of the noise.
Yeah.
You know, you look at what he said in 2005 when he packed in saying, I don't want to disrespect the sport anymore.
I got caught up in the hype, though, you know that, because when you think about it, like, it was 20 years before we saw him box Kevin McBride, who, if I'm totally honest, would never have been allowed in his dressing room to tie his boots in Mike's prime. Saw him box Kevin McBride, get knocked out by Kevin McBride, cry in the press conference and say the fight had totally left him and he was never going to do it again. We fast forward 20 years and look at the life he's lived since then. And I still got caught up in the hype when I was there and I saw the shape he was in and the way he was talking. I'm thinking, he's going to do it. I think that mine was the fantasy overtook the reality of what it really was. And I think that I was just then reliving it. Like, when Mike Tyson walked in, I was like, wow, this is what inspired me to become a boxer when I was a kid, getting up with my dad, listening to it on the radio, because they weren't even having them early fights on the telly then. Listening to it on the radio, and this guy was, you know, a phenomenon globally. Probably the most famous person in the world then.
I remember, I went to see him fight Frank in 1989.
Yeah.
And, you know, I saw him 2 or 3 times. I saw him fight Julius Francis in England when it was becoming the tribute act. I saw him fight Frank Bruno in 1989 when he was just beginning to go the other side of himself.
Still a monster.
And he was still a monster, but you could see the signs were beginning. Obviously, with Buster Douglas, we saw the ultimate outcome. But you've got to also look at the reality. I mean, I saw that he made observations that Turki Al-Sheikh had phoned him up and wished him well and stuff like that. But there is an element, without wanting to make this into a 4-act play, that boxing doesn't come out of this particularly well.
No.
And the reasons why it doesn't come out of it particularly well, it's one thing putting it as an exhibition. It's one thing suggesting it's a choreographed situation between him, to some extent, and Roy Jones Jr. It's another thing when you've sanctioned it as a professional boxing.
Well, this is the problem. That's a worry.
And that's the problem that you've got to have. And you've got to work out what this sport wants to do and what it wants to be about, because it can't be about this.
Well, I think
there could be no parallel universe. And you guys, with all your background, Spencer, I'm surprised that you guys weren't being more vociferous about a 58-year-old man going into a ring, irrespective of... This was not Iron Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson departed the building in the late 90s and hasn't been seen since.
Sure.
This was a man that's had tragedies in his life, financial difficulties in his life, and clearly isn't capable of performing as an athlete. And yet the boxing fraternity got caught up in the bullshit, wouldn't call it for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I'm guilty for that, for sure. And you just looked at it and just thought, well, that's what I thought, that even Mike Tyson and the that he's been through and, you know, in the past, and looking at him going back 20 years and you go, well, he's not going to improve from Kevin McBride, but that guy would have still beaten Jake Paul, because you're talking about levels here and whatnot.
I mean, Jake Paul couldn't carry his jockstrap 25 years ago, and neither should he be able to.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So you just got caught up in that
Well,
we watched a ring walk. After the first round, even when he done the first round, I thought, here we go. Like, I know he looked an old version of Mike Tyson, but you saw there was a little bit of ambition there, but he was after 2 minutes. He had nothing left. And I think, if anything, Jake started easing off him at the end, which was respectful from him because he, you know, that would have been quite a sad sight to see.
It's pity.
Yeah.
You know, people saying it's respect, but it's pity.
But did you find it hard to watch?
I didn't watch it. I read the reviews. I refused to watch it because I don't think it's got any...
Well, it was hard to watch.
I don't think it's got any legitimacy.
It was hard to watch.
I mean, I read Jeff Powell's article, and I just, out of pure principle, said to myself, I'm not watching this. This is about something else. If Netflix are able to profit off it, and
60 million, by the way,
60 million people, 60 million screens. I mean, okay, they had problems with buffering and viewers, but ultimately, out of 280 million subscriptions Netflix have got, 1 in 4 apparently watched this event, which hyped it to a different level. But the disappointing thing was that Tyson, after the event, was now talking about doing it again. He's got paid $20 million for this, so of course he wants to do it again, because ultimately...
Who would watch that? Who would, like?
Well, this is my point.
And more importantly, and you're right in what you said about this Texas State Commission allowing this to happen, knowing what Mike had been through, especially when he come back and talks about the blood transfusions and nearly dying in the July before that and losing the 25 pounds. You go, well, how the f*** would you sanction that then? That like doesn't make any sense. But who would sanction it now after Mike's come and said what he said?
Well, they must have known this information.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't a secret, because they'd have to get his medical records in order to be able to license him.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, they probably knew about it. So the fact that Tyson said it afterwards, I don't know what the purpose of it is. I'm assuming that the boxing fraternity will be much more vociferous the next time round if it becomes part of the equation that he's putting himself forward to fight this, Jake Paul's brother.
Where does Jake Paul go from here, by the way?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, I don't think he gets any legitimacy from this fight.
He's great for boxing now.
I mean, his production company, MVP, produces the outcomes that people want for whatever reason, and I don't understand. I was sitting there talking to my 16-year-old daughter yesterday, and for the life of me, raving on about KSI, by the way, she was, which was I was like slightly troubled by.
That's what I'm saying. No, but that is what we're living in now. Like, the world has changed, and it is entertainment. And
but there's
love or hate Jake Paul,
there's nothing about this fight.
He's great for boxing.
There's nothing about this fight. Why? Because you think he puts eyes on the prize and gives up people the next generation an opportunity to look at boxing. I think he's great that ultimately, as a YouTube influencer, the influence that he's given is in sport. And I think that's great, because there are certain YouTube influencers that create a different dynamic. Yeah. Some people would say Andy Tate imparts a good wisdom. Other people would say that he's a misogynist.
But if you look at what he done for Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano at the weekend for boxing, they both got paid $6 million each. Well, if you look at what he's done, he done that for them.
I hear that.
And you go, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I hear that.
The that kid takes, you go, he is actually good for boxing.
Yeah, I mean,
we live in that world now where...
Let's be clear about the people taking. I'm pretty sure that most of us would take a sandwich if it was full of that much money involved.
Absolutely.
So the point is that I'm not going to worry about what people say about him. But do you now, given the fact that there's an observation from him about fighting Canelo, this sort of stuff cannot be legitimised, can it?
Stop it. Like that, I think it's all just hype, talk. And he's a marketing genius, that kid. That is a fact. You know, he knows how to promote himself. He knows how to put himself out there. Of course, by mentioning Canelo, that gets names out there. He ain't going to box Canelo. I reckon where he will go is I've seen Cole Frotch and Bellew popping up as well. I say that's not going to happen either. I think that where we would go is if Conor...
Well, I can't make up what Carl wants to do. I mean, I spoke to him last week whether he has nothing but scorn and contempt for these situations, or whether he wants to go and get a big bag of money and fill him in. You think that's what Carl will do?
Yeah, that, mate. Yeah. And
Probably.
fill him in.
And fill him in at the same time.
Because he would do that, Cole. Like, he's kept himself in good nick.
Yeah,
but he's not stupid. He recognises when there's a few quid. Would Jake Paul do that? I don't think he's stupid enough to do that. I think he's a smart kid. And I think Jake Paul would look at someone like Conor McGregor. I mean, I know Conor's in a bit of himself at the moment that he's got to clear up. And if he does do that, that's where I see Jake Paul in next. I think Jake Paul, Conor McGregor is the fight. That's where he would go. What
was the audience? I mean, obviously we've seen that arena before because we saw Billy Joe Saunders fight Canelo Alvarez in it. So we know it's a big auditorium. Yeah. At one particular point, it was the biggest indoor event since, I think, Ali fought there in the 70s, right? Or one of the biggest events since Ali had a fight in America against one of the opposition. I can't remember. Yeah. But the audience, what was it? Just a cross section of celebrities and younger generation people that like Jake Paul. Or was it a mixed crowd of real boxing people?
You had the old and the new there, whereas like you obviously had Jake Paul's fans that were there, but the people that come in to relive that Mike Tyson era, some of them that had seen him before, and some of them are just there to see it because they
was there a lot of booing?
Opportunity.
Because there was observations made that, you know, coming towards the end of the fight, the last 2 rounds, that the fans started to boo.
Well, they were frustrated because I think that, look, if you really break it down and you think about it...
People like you filled them with the wrong expectations.
Oh, it's my fault, is it?
It is.
It's my...
Well, Gareth, everything's Gareth's fault.
Yeah, blame Gareth, not me, mate. But yeah, no, I think that there was frustration there because obviously Mike couldn't deliver. His legs were clearly finished. He couldn't move himself in range. He looked a shell of his former self. Jake took the foot off the gas and sort of showed that respect and let him get through it. And you felt like the last couple of rounds were sort of like that, and they stopped and then went to touch hands at the end of it. Tyson, look, I'm glad that Tyson got to the end of it, and it weren't as humiliating as it could have been for him. Wow. So I do think that Jake eased it off a little bit.
I don't think.
But
I
think there was frustration from the crowd there. Yeah. 72,000 plus there was.
I know.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying. Crowd. Obviously, the atmosphere, but yeah, the whole build-up.
Put it this way, they were walking out before the decision was announced.
What you did, I mean, you were obviously engaged with Netflix during the course of the week. Yeah. And this is one of their first, forays into this space. Anything to report about working with Netflix?
No, I thought they were very good, mate. Like, as you know, yeah, there's a few bumps in the road, but there's always going to be when you start out. You know, when you going into a new thing, and that's exactly what it was. You know, but I think that the production was great. I think they done everything top notch. To be fair. And
any restrictions upon access or any filming?
Well, we had. Well, obviously we didn't have the radio rights. No, that's why they were very smart because they kept everything in-house. Yeah. Hence why they had 60 million plus viewers because they sort of kept everything there. So they didn't allow any radio or anyone to do anything. But our access was actually brilliant. It was first class. Your old mate Gareth Davies was. He had a new bromance going on with Mike Tyson. So,
did he? I saw some of that, yeah.
So that was good. I mean, he had great access with Mike, to be fair.
Such sincerity from Gareth. It's heartwarming to see.
No, you can't take it away from him, though. To be fair, he did get the interviews that were required. And no one else did, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what you do with them, isn't it, ultimately? And obviously, you know, the idea that Mike Tyson was going to go in and beat the mark out of someone was, I just thought, ridiculous, but it was what it was.
Well, I think that Tyson probably had that in his mind, but, you know, like I say, the reality was his body just didn't allow him to do it.
Well, I'm glad to see the back of it. Not that I saw the front of it, because I didn't watch it.
Well, that would be definitely the last time we see Mike Tyson in a ring, for sure.